And very warm welcome to, thank you, very warm welcome to Estonishing Evenings event, How to Stop Racism in Estonia. My name is Silver Tambor, by the way, and I'm the chief editor of Estonian World, which is an English language online magazine. A few words about the Estonishing Evenings for those who are here for the first time. We started about 2.5 years ago. It was started by 4 like-minded Estonians. We all lived abroad for some time, and we came back to Estonia, and we wanted to have an event where Estonians and people who have come here from other countries could meet and learn more about each other. And so, yes, this is 20th event tonight, so Jubilee, I guess, a small one. And we've had events on very different topics, from just generally how to survive in Estonia to learning about country's culture, religion, history, etc. Last event was a fun event in October. It was called How to Survive as a Man in Estonia. And tonight it's a bit serious topic. It's about racism. Why are we doing it? There are people who say that there's no racism in Estonia. I would say, as an editor of English language media outlet and meeting so many people from other countries, that people who say that there is no racism in Estonia or it's not a problem, then either they're living in a cloud cuckoo land, or they just are in denial, or both. I don't know. And it's possible that some people don't know about it because they don't know people from other countries and they haven't heard about it. Well, I've heard many stories, and some of it is also been written about in the media. Some stories or incidents have not been reported in the media. That's because some people don't want to actually speak, or they are too afraid to share their experiences. Just a few months ago, I spoke to a lady from Pakistan who wasn't allowed to a tram at Ülemiste stop. She had a small kid as well, child with her. The door was slammed and the kid was actually hurt. I spoke to her. I said, you can go to Estonian media, talk about it. She didn't want to do that. She was afraid. So, this is just one example. Some of the stories, obviously, we have heard also in the media. But tonight, we have invited here 4 people who will share their personal stories. But we don't want this event to be only about sort of kind of whining about it. We actually want to also come up with some suggestions how to make Estonia more tolerant. And so it's going to be like that. First, we have Kari Kasper here, who is from Estonian Human Rights Center. Then we'll have those 4 stories. And then we have a short break, and after the break, we'll form teams around the tables where you're sitting. So there will be 11 teams. And we have also invited here team leads or moderators allocated to each table. They will help you to discuss some ideas and come up with some ideas how to make Estonia a more tolerant country. Will be about half an hour. Don't worry too much. It's not going to be too formal. It's nice and easy. You can also mingle, get to know each other. It's a good chance also to make new friends and do some networking. And as I said, we have moderators to help you. Then after that, we will choose the best idea, and the Human Rights Center has actually promised to try and implement that idea. And also there will be an award for the best idea. So be patient. But first off, I'm very glad to invite here Kari Kasper. And Kari will speak about the current situation in Estonia. Just a little briefly about Kari's background. He founded and leads the Estonian Human Rights Center, which is an independent human rights NGO. He also works as a lecturer on the EU and human rights law at the Tallinn University of Technology, and in the past he also led the awareness-raising campaign Diversity Enriches in Estonia. So the stage is yours. Warm applause, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. and it's so great to see so many of you here today. Yeah, I want to really thank the Estonishing Evenings team for approaching us with this topic. I think it's an important topic also in our work, where we kind of consider, let's see. Anyway, where we consider, we work a lot with asylum seekers, we work a lot with non-discrimination issues, and we also see that this is a relevant topic here. Sorry, this doesn't work? Yes. So it's an important topic for us, and we have seen over the years how things have become a bit more problematic. But of course, if to talk about racism, there is three, first, before I go into the actual discussion, there's three things I want to point out from our perspective. First of all, racism is a tricky topic to talk about because so many people have very different understandings of it. You know, what is racism? Is it just if you are intolerant of someone or if you discriminate against someone because of their skin color? It's not just that. Racism can have many different meanings in different contexts, and it can span from different things like, you know, Holocaust denial to, you know, things that relate to religious beliefs, etc. So first of all, there is no kind of one definition of racism as such. So it's not a thing that, you know, when we think about the Nazis, that is only that. But modern forms of racism are much more subtle, and sometimes people talk about cultural differences when they really want to say, you know, racist things. And so it's very hidden and difficult to uncover, because you will not, you know, if you go to a person and ask, are you a racist? Most people say, no, I'm not a racist. But then again, sometimes they actually are. The second thing is that in order to discuss racism, you don't have to accept that races exist. So races do not really, if you think about biological races, then scientists have really shown that this is basically fake news. There is no such thing as race from a biological point of view. It's just a social construct. So the EU and other, you know, countries have rejected any kind of race theories, but that doesn't mean that there is no racism. Races do not exist, but racism does exist, unfortunately. And the third thing is that any discussion about racism should also involve intersectional aspects. So racism is not something on its own, but it is interlinked with different other issues like gender, sexual orientation, many other aspects that then interlink and might create very big difficulties for a person. But yeah, my role here is to just make a very short presentation on behalf of the Human Rights Center to look at some of the recent statistics. And of course, statistics are very imprecise in topics like this because of the exact thing that I mentioned earlier. It's very difficult to say that, you know, this is racism, this is not racism. But before going to the statistics, I just wanted to share two anecdotes that I myself experienced. Basically, last week, on Friday, I sat down in my home, I turned on the TV, you know, some people still do that. I watched the evening news in Tallinn, and this is what I saw. There was a story about Paide, the city center of Paide, a very nice place. And suddenly, what do I see there? There's this guy sitting in the council in Paide and just talking about how the city center, you know, there was later an interview with that person, talking about how the city center square should really not be made into a pedestrian-only area. And that was the only thing that was talked about in the whole news story. So for me, I saw something different when I looked at this guy's T-shirt, that this is really crazy racist thing. And there was even a worse thing written on his back, which I'm not going to repeat to promote this. But there's of course the fact that we have in one city a councilman who wears this kind of shirt, and that's unfortunate. But the other unfortunate thing was that the news editors in this public broadcasting system, in this TV show that's watched by almost, a lot of Estonians, it's one of the most watched TV shows ever, they never thought that this should be the story, that there was this racist T-shirt, and they just put it on, just like that. And the other thing from last week that I kind of anecdotally saw was this Porto Franco development that you might have heard about, that will be in the waterfront here near the city center, very nice office buildings. And what happened there, that there was a Finnish trade school who wanted to open kind of hotel school there, where you could train people who work in hotels, with students mostly from foreign countries. They had made already a lot of investments, a lot of plans, but the Estonian government rejected this. They basically said that it was supposed to be called the Nordic School of Hospitality and Innovation. They basically said that having more students from third countries would create more, would raise the threat level to our internal security and would have an additional burden for our law enforcement and security authorities. So that's not the media anymore, that's not the politicians, that is the state, the Ministry of the Interior. That's an example of institutionalized racism. You could say that this is not really racist because it's perhaps whatever they thought this could be the threat, but it's third countries, Okay, so now just briefly some statistics, and I'm really sorry that the tables and the statistics are very, very small to see, but here we have the latest data from the Eurobarometer. This is the European Union's statistics service that looks at different things, and this is about the discrimination in the EU questionnaire. And here you can see that there's for each of these, a little bit to explain this chart. For each of these, there is the EU average, which is the darker colors, the first column, and the second one is the Estonian result. And the first question was, how would you feel about having someone of these characteristics elected to the highest political position in your country? And of course, you can see from there, everyone in all of these categories, Estonia is quite, lower than the average. But more specifically, and perhaps you look at the red and the light red ones, which is where people would say that they would be uncomfortable with certain things. And from this table, we see that a person with a different skin color than the majority of the population, in EU, on average, people, 12% would be uncomfortable with this. But in Estonia, that's 23%. So that's more than twice what is the EU average. In other cases, the differences are not so big and not so distinct. So you can really see that there is a problem with the skin color in Estonia. The other question was, how would you feel, how comfortable would you feel if you had a colleague at work with whom you are in daily contact who belongs to these categories? And there let's look at the red and the light red or pink results. And there you can also see when you have, almost the same for the regular kind of categories like a young person or a white person or a Christian person. But when you look at, for example, at a black person, then again, 7% is the EU average, but in Estonia, that's 15% who would feel uncomfortable. So again, the skin color makes a difference in Estonia for some reason, and it's worse. And then That's the EU average. It's not comparing to Sweden or Finland, but it's the average of all EU countries, where we know that there is problems with discrimination anyway. And the final one from this specific Eurobarometer is a question: if your child, one of your children, was in a love relationship with a person from the following groups. So very, very controversial question. And here, again, what we see is results for Estonia, where black person, the EU average is 16%, would be uncomfortable. In Estonia, that's 33%. Or for Muslims, 26% in European Union on average, 40% in Estonia. So it's in all kinds of ways. These statistics show that there are problems in this area. And just not to rely only on this one study or this one questionnaire, I also want to show you the European Social Survey results, which is a question whether there are not so many questions where you could kind of get a hint at what is the situation with racism. Is there racism or not? So here there is, would you allow many or few immigrants from poorer countries outside of the EU? And you can see, starting from the bottom, it says, basically many, then there is a few, and then there is none. Basically, the dark blue is none. So Hungary, really, you don't want to go to Hungary according to this, because Hungary really doesn't like any immigrants from poorer countries. But Estonia as well is not in such a good company. The results are similar to Poland, a bit worse than Slovenia, or it's similar to Bulgaria. We are nowhere in vicinity of France or UK or Ireland or Norway or Switzerland, which have much more tolerant attitudes to immigrants. Of course, you can say that this is not racism, this is other factors, but that's one of the indicators. That could be one of the reasons as well. So I hope I showed you with this short presentation what is kind of the big picture. And now I'm very happy to give the floor to hear some personal stories. And then I'm really, really looking forward to your solutions, your ideas, because we are really looking for ideas that we could also work with and we could implement in our work. And of course, you can also help with this by donating to our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. We have time for one question for Kari. Someone wants to ask now. Just one question. Okay, we'll take that one.
Thank you for this introduction. My name is Jaak and I'm a xenophiliac. I noticed this interesting thing with those questions. There was a difference between the two first and the third one. For the two first, a lot of Estonians displayed an indifferent attitude. I've noticed consistently 8% in comparison to like maybe 2 or 3 for the EU average. And then the third question, as soon as it became about love and relationships, then basically the indifference disappeared. That was just very interesting, and I was wondering, why do you think this could be?
Well, there is this don't know is still quite you could say quite high in many cases. But of course, it's easier for a person to perhaps put it in this position. For example, we created a lot of controversy when we did this Diversity Enriches campaign, this Erinevus rikastab campaign, where we asked people this kind of questions. We kind of provocatively asked, what if your child wants to, have a relationship with. We had also an LGBT aspect of it, but we also had a race aspect to it, and that created this campaign created a lot of discussion because people were not used to thinking like this. So perhaps now they are more used to thinking like this, and this is something that they have thought about. But it's always more personal when it relates to your family life rather than something that you do. Because those questions are also, one is about political life in general, like there's someone in the Prime Minister's office, do I really care? I don't really have a contact with that person. Secondly, in the workplace, you do your work, I don't have to like you, that's then okay. But then if it's in your family, you have to engage with that person. So then you would get it comes into your close personal circle. So thanks.
Thank you for that. And also, you can make donations to Human Rights Center. They have the donation box just on the table there in the front room. But we move on. We're going to have the first personal story, and I'm delighted to invite here Manan Anwar. So briefly, he was born and raised in Pakistan. He moved to Estonia in 2014 as an Erasmus Mundus scholar. After finishing his master's with distinction, he continued to work as a design engineer in the automotive industry. He also teaches industrial design at Tallinn as a visiting lecturer. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to tell you a short story and possibly the 2 lessons that I gathered to learn from it. This might not be very significant as compared to probably other stories, but anyway. I'm a very regular commuter on the train line from Tallinn to Paskula, and I've been traveling regularly every day for about 4 years for my work. And there was one day when I was sitting there with my Estonian colleague and we were talking. I was going back home, and there was a group of women just talking among themselves there. And one of the ladies, while passing me, just very gently and not in a very forceful way as to stand out, just slightly whispered to me, like, I don't know, probably like a kid, to go home. And at first, the first thing that I thought was that was a reaction to what exactly does she mean by that? And then somehow it sinks through your consciousness, and you realize, okay, what exactly did she mean was that probably I was talking too much in English, and they don't like it, and they want us to probably. I'm not sure, but the intent got clear to me later. But that is not the point of why I want to tell the story. There was lesson 1 that I learned, and the first thing that I learned from that was that why did it bother me? I mean, if I felt like I am at home, then it shouldn't be just anything. And then I asked myself, I did a little bit of introspection to understand, do I really feel at home here, and what can I do about that? And this process of introspection, I tend to realize, okay, maybe I should strive a bit more to learn the language. And possibly even more than that, maybe I should try to share the aspects of living here that actually make me really grateful to be here, and share them and contribute back to the country in some way. So that, because home for me and for everyone is a place where you give a piece of your heart, you share yourself. And I think even though I did that before, I'm much more conscious of it now, to actually share that part with everyone as well. So lesson number 1, use any opportunity to introspect and use it as a fuel for yourself. That way, any negative that you receive will be turned into positive. So that's first thing. The second thing is, quite often we, the people here, the moderates and liberals, we often get into a little box of thinking that, okay, we tend to put, me included, put into little boxes that, okay, this is a person is a victim, this person here is a racist, and I am the observer as a third person here. But the reality is actually not quite like it, because there is one person in all of these boxes, and I want to share with you why do I think that is. There is a part of us that discriminates all the time, in among us, each and every time, and we have to realize the part of ourselves and face it, and then address it to understand where are we discriminating unnecessarily. Because I think part of the reason why the far right hates liberals so much is because most of us come from a place of moral superiority, and coming from a place of moral superiority, people will never ever agree to listen to you. So I asked myself, have I ever behaved in that way? Have I ever made fun of someone, and have I made fun of someone because of their ethnicity? And that was true. When I was in high school, there was a person that came from another background, and I remember that I did actually do that. I made fun of that person for speaking in a different way. The point of the matter is that we cannot fight external adversity and evil until we realize that we face it within ourselves, and then we realize it, and then once we realize it, and then we know that this part can actually can actually come out, then we are better equipped to face it externally as well. So that is the second lesson that I learned from myself as well, is to always be introspective of yourself and know that there is a part of you that can be a racist person. And to know that, I think that is one of the biggest things that we need to realize that. And once we do that, we can actually empathize with the person who is being a racist, instead of putting them in a box and then have a conversation with them, not from a place of moral superiority, but as a human with flaws. So this is, I think this is what I learned from over a long course of time after this incident happened. So I really hope that you get to take something positive from that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this very philosophical take. And next, I'm glad to invite here Gene Walker. Gene is originally from Los Angeles, California, and lived in Houston, Texas before moving to Estonia 12 years ago after marrying an Estonian woman. Gene has for 25 years worked as a professional dancer, choreographer, and working for a number of famous artists. He's also a professional chef. He's now divorced from his first wife, but he's now in a new relationship and has a 6-week-old daughter with his girlfriend, who's actually sitting here as well. But the floor is yours.
Thank you. Aita. Hello. Tere. I want to first ask everyone a question to start off. How many of you, thank you. How many of you have met a black person? Raise your hand. Okay, cool. Yay. So I want everyone to go back 10 years ago, especially Estonians. This question is for Estonians particularly. Go back 10 years, and I want you to think to yourself, 10 years ago, have you ever met a black person up close, in person? Raise your hand. Whoa, okay, good. For a lot of Estonians, I came to realize that when I moved here, that black people were not very seen, I guess you could say. There's a lot of people who haven't met one up close. There's a lot of people who hadn't seen one or talked to a black person, whether they were from the United States, whether they were from Africa, whether they were from the UK. They've only seen them on TV. And a lot of their, I guess you can say, their either interests or their what they've made up their minds about black people came from what they saw on TV. So, as I said before, I am a professional dancer, choreographer. Please don't ask me to dance. That's racist. I'll get back to that in a second. But for a black person from America especially, probably from the UK as well, but especially for a black person from America, there's a lot of things that people from Europe, and I'll just say from Estonia, don't realize about us. We are very opinionated. We are very outgoing as far as like wanting to meet people, wanting to say, hey, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And we are very sensitive to how you see us. The story I'm going to tell happened my very first year living here. Actually, it happened in the very first month, maybe in the first couple of weeks. I was living in Tartu, and the house that I was living in, compared to where the store was, a Remy store, was about a 5-6 minute walk. So one day, I'm going to the store, get some food. I passed a bus stop. There's this old Estonian guy. It's about 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He is absolutely drunk already. And first of all, I was like, wow, you're drunk really fast. That was just, I don't know, it was kind of like surprising to me. But he sees me walking, and I go right past him, and he looks at me, and he's talking to a friend of his, and they're drunk, sitting on the bus stop bench, and he sees me, and he goes, oh. Just like that, I'm not even kidding. Oh, you come here. And I'm like, no. Come here, come here. And so he starts talking to me, and he's asking me, where are you from? And I tell him I'm from the US, and he's like, nigger, yeah, jingle. And I'm like, oh, whoa, what was that? I was like, no, don't say that. Okay, he's like, but you American? Yes. So, nigger, yeah. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, okay. So I had to stop him, and I had to compose myself. And I was like, no, you don't say that. And at this time, I didn't know a lot of Estonian that I could communicate with him. I still don't know that much. I know a little bit more now. But I tried to tell him, no, you can't say that. You say black man. You know, if you don't say my name, you don't know my name, at least say black man. He goes, oh, okay, you want a beer? And I'm like, no, I don't need no beer, thank you very much. And I go to the store. So, a couple of weeks later, see the same guy, same place, drunk again. And I know it sounds like this is a joke, but this actually happened. I see the same guy, he's drunk, same bus stop, and he sees me, he's like, and this time he's kind of like, he's not shocked. He's more like, you again, hey. And he's like, come here. And he said, nigger, come here. And I stopped him. I was like, hey, look, you can't say nigger. Oh, nigger, A. Black man. Must mees. Oh, no. Okay. You want a beer? I don't want a beer. Thank you very much. I don't want. And, I let it go. Went to the store. Went back home. It had to be at least a week later, and I see the guy again. Now this time I'm trying to avoid him because I don't want to hear that word. I just don't want to hear it from him. I don't want to see drunk people and whatever. So, but I have to walk that way, and he sees me. He's sitting on the bench, and he sees me. He says, oh. He gets up, and he goes, "Hello, black man." And I laughed. I was like, "There you go. Good job. Hello, how are you?" And I shook his hand, and he offered me a beer again. I was like, "No, I don't want a beer, but it's okay. Thank you very much." That was probably my first time actually hearing the word nigger addressed directly to me. And it happened here. The entire time I've been in the US, it's, sometimes I hear it from, non-black people, and sometimes it kind of makes me like, why are you saying that? But as far as directed to me, never heard it. And I got the indication from this guy that he doesn't know any better. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he doesn't know any better. You could feel that, so take your time and let him know that it's not okay to say. And I think that is one thing that a lot of Estonians don't realize, is that they want to say something like that because they don't know any better. And it is up to other people to kind of educate them. And that's where I'm kind of going with this. There's a lot of education about another race, another people, that you really don't get. And some people are ignorant, and other people are just idiots. And we have to understand what the difference is. Ignorant people are just people without knowledge. That is the true definition. Ignorance means you have no knowledge of a topic, of an issue, or of a culture. So it doesn't mean that you're just whatever. It just means that you are just ignorant of it and you haven't learned yet. Idiots, on the other hand, they don't care. So you have to just move those people out of the way and not worry about them, because you're not going to be able to change your minds or whatever. You have to fight them another way. But the majority of people are just ignorant. And those are the people that I think that we should work on, that you take the time to actually talk to them and let them know what you're saying or what you're thinking probably isn't what you think it is. Because as far as I'm concerned, I consider myself very educated. I consider myself very worldly, nice. I'm kind of nice. And, someone that I would be, you would love to hang around. Or maybe not, I don't know. But at least I am that person as an individual, not as a whole race or a whole other people. So for me, that is one thing that I would like to see, not just myself, not just my girlfriend, not just my friends. I would like to see other educated people like you in here to take the time and educate the people who don't understand. Because there's a lot of history behind why Estonians are so-and-so called racist, and they have to kind of like figure out why they're racist, because they don't even know. They haven't even met one. And so if you've never met a person of color, if you never met a black person, if you never met an Asian person, if you never met a Pakistani person, if you never met anyone, how do you know that they're bad or they're not equal to you? So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Make sure that you go out. If you hear someone using a word like that, stop them and say, no, black man. That's it. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much indeed, Gene. That was a lovely story. And I agree with you. I think it comes down to personal experience a lot. But outside Tallinn, it's quite difficult sometimes. So again, media has got work to do here, you know. But next, I'm delighted to invite here Ken Saburi. Ken was born and raised in Singapore to Japanese and Malaysian Chinese parents. He says he has never fallen into a single box of identity. The term multiculturalism, he says, has always been associated as an asset in Singapore. But in other parts of the world, it is synonymous to societal disintegration. That's what he says. But here we go. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Good to see all you guys wasting your time on Monday evening. So sorry, I'm really sarcastic sometimes, but yeah, as you said, that my dad is Japanese, my mom's Malaysian Chinese, born in Singapore, and from young I've never experienced what exactly is, they call it a majority privilege, because when I was young, grade 1, a kid will come up to me and like, hey, you Japanese, right? By your name. I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah, you are a rapist and a murderer. Because in Singapore, back in World War II, about 30,000 Singaporeans died. They were killed by the Japanese soldiers. So just imagine 7-year-old kid telling me that. Wait, I'll come back to Estonia in a few seconds. So I'll just say, yeah, but didn't your dad just drove a rape machine? And then the kid was like, what? He drove a Toyota, isn't it? Yeah, so anyway, my point is that I've never experienced this majority privilege. I don't think I consider myself as snowflakes. And speaking about that, there's this problem in society that we see two extreme sides. On one side of it, we hear people who complain every single thing and they associate it with racism. Oh, my colleague didn't say good morning to me, he's such a racist. And then on the right side, it's like, no, there's no racism in Estonia. If you want racism, go to South Africa. It's like, okay, like, so we should only talk about racism when somebody get killed. It's like, yeah, So this is the problem about these two sides, and what I want to first bring out about is let's put down some parameters, draw the line, set up boundaries, and I want to play an interactive game with you guys, and it will be based on the experiences that I have. So it's gonna be, is it racism? So if you think yes, put up your hand. If you think no, you also put up your, it will be in turns, and then I'll give my own opinion about it. So, when you enter the bus, and nobody wants to give you a seat. It's all crowded, but everybody have their own seat for themselves. When they look at you, or look at me as an Asian guy, they're not giving any way, they just stare at you. Is this racism? Yes? No? Correct! It's no. Because Estonians, whether you're white, black, blue, purple, yellow, or black, they don't give seats to anybody. So, drawing the boundaries. All right, so the next experience. If I'm trying to recall. I'm trying to give you the mildest to the most horrible ones. Okay, a friend asked me, hey, do you eat rice every day and sometimes dog meat? Is this racism? Yes? No? No, it's not racism. For me, I think we should always encourage uncomfortable questions and discussions. In this case, I eat rice almost every day, that's a fact. But I don't eat dog meat. So, yeah. So, moving on. This is quite funny. I went to a shop with my girlfriend, and this guy, I think he's a little bit drunk, he come up to me and do like, Chinaman, is this racism? Okay, no? Well, to me, I'm like, wow, it's mildly racist, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm like 50% Japanese, and I don't know, maybe 30% Chinese because my maternal grandparents are Chinese. But it's all about context. You know, he came up to me like really aggressively and like he wants to pick up a fight with me. So yeah, and my girlfriend was there at a point of time, and I was like, I just like smile at the guy and look at my girlfriend, like, because my girlfriend previously, she didn't believe that Estonians can be racist to Asians because we are in America, we are known as the model minority or whatever. I think maybe you can testify upon it, but yeah, she always say like, no, Estonians love Asians, and if you're Japanese, we love you even more. But not really true. I've experienced even worse. So next one. I was in this club, and these three douchebags, because I used to have really long hair because I listen to heavy metal and stuff. So these three douchebags, one of them pull my hair and say, hey, you Chinese? Oh, of course, Estonian. Like, hey, you Chinese, or whatever. And then I was like, well, I'm not exactly Chinese. They're like, no, you are Chinese. I'm like, what does it matter? So is this racism? Yes and no? Well, it's kind of racist because he wants to pick a fight. Sorry, I missed that detail out. So I told him like, no, it doesn't matter if I'm Chinese. And then the other friend, like, he kind of like look at me, give me a closer look, like, are you like Japanese? I'm like, well, it really doesn't matter. So I just walked out of the club. So yeah, next story. Yeah, so I was walking along Woodley Street with an Australian friend. Very normal guy, shy, quiet Australian. Yeah, they exist, shy and quiet Australians. Yeah, you're studying semiotics. So yeah, you know. So it was daytime, but it was 7 p.m. summer, daytime. So we were just talking normally and stuff, you know, outside Paha Poisid, if you guys are familiar with Tartu. So we were just talking normally, you know, like Asian guy, like this guy and this semiotic Australian guy. We're just talking like, yeah, how's Melbourne? Why do you even come here? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly, like, this guy ran from behind me with like maybe a third of beer and pour on my head. And then he said in very strong Estonian accent, like, whoa, you speak good English, or blah, 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 you know, like, oh, mocking us, like, oh, I don't speak good English, but you speak good English. And then he kept on laughing at me. Is this racism? Yes. And no? Well, I would say it's kinda, because like we were both speaking English, and from behind, I mean, it's kind of like you need to analyze a little bit, like I'm the Asian guy from behind, you can see I'm Asian. It's very easy to see, like the body language, how I walk and stuff, and this white Australian guy. So, like, if it's a matter of like being xenophobic and English speaking, he could have pointed to the Australian guy, but he pointed on me. So, kind of like, okay, then the next one is gonna be a little bit more fun, I would say. So I was in Zavod, in Tartu, maybe some of you guys know. So I was with my Italian friend. So I was just waiting to get a beer. And then suddenly my Italian friend said, we have to run now. I was like, what? And then it's like, no, somebody wants to beat you up. I'm like, what? And then this skinhead guy was shouting like, hey, you, Bruce Lee, you, Jackie Chan, come out. I'll beat the shit out of you. Obviously in Estonian accent. So I was like, what? Then yeah, my Italian friend just dragged me, and so we ran out. And this guy was shouting like, come and fight me, you Jackie Chan, you know, like I do kickboxing. And then he was chasing us. If you're familiar, from Zavod to Kivi. So that's a good 30 meters, 35, 40 meters. And the police came and stopped him. Luckily, there was a police car. So is that guy displaying racism? Yes. And no? All right. Yeah, that's pretty racist, you know. So yeah, I mean, I know there are other. I mean, it's comparing to my other friends who are brown or black. I think they have it worst. I've heard many stories because I have a lot of friends from diverse backgrounds. But my point is that even as an Asian, you know, people always say that, you know, everybody loves you, nothing's gonna happen to you, blah, blah, blah. But it's not really true, because like I've been caught along the streets like, hey, make in China, or my friends, even a Japanese friend, he told me one time, like, he entered a supermarket and an Estonian guy said, oh, the refugees are here already. Like, what? Japanese? You say that to a Japanese? What are you talking about? Like in all history, the person who is more of a refugee is you, not the Japanese. Like, what? But anyway, so it's like, and one really odd thing that I want to also point out is that when I talk to my Estonian friends about it, they always ask me this question. Yeah, most of the races are Russians, right? I'm like, no, there's only one Russian out of 7 hostile encounters. I'm talking, I have a lot, not a lot, but like biker gang approach me like, oh, what are you doing here and stuff like that. Yeah, so anyway, so they always ask me this question, and I was like, why? It's always Estonians out of like 7 times 1 is Russian. So what I want to bring to full circle over here is like, maybe it's just my humble and personal opinion that, well, I don't think I'm important. I don't think the 0.001% of the black population here is important. I don't think anybody else here is more important. But what is more important would be the 20% of the Russians over here. I think Estonians should think more about integrating them, because this is more of a bigger issue than trying to give out cotton candy to an Asian guy and a black guy or whatever. If Estonia wants to evolve to Estonia version 2.0, I think this is what they need to do. Or the other option is you can try to adopt a 150 years ago ideology of nation states and nationalistic identity, but it's 150 years ago identity. But 2 options, 2 choices, and it's all up to you, Estonia. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and it was lovely. And so our final guest speaker sharing personal story is Amna Ashan. Amna moved to Estonia in 2018 from the United Kingdom. She's originally from Pakistan, where she was born and raised before she got a travel bug and found herself living the expat life. She works here as a digital marketer and is interested in understanding the root cause of racism, gender inequality, and Islamophobia in Europe in general. So the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. It's a little weird. I'm not wearing shoes, but yes. Okay. So, very interesting stories, but yeah, starting with mine. The first time I experienced racism was when I was 18. I was living in Pakistan. I was traveling for the first time abroad alone, and I was going to South Africa. And an old aunt of mine said to me, you know, don't hang out with the white people. They spike drinks, abuse women, and don't take any food from them because it's unhygienic. And I don't know if she saw American Pie or like she was watching I don't know what she saw. But the reason I'm telling this story is that racism exists everywhere, in every part of the world, and it's not necessarily from a light-skinned person to a dark-skinned person. So often when I talk about Estonia, people say, oh, but you have so many problems in Pakistan. Yeah, we do. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about problems in other countries. Anyway, so I moved to Estonia a year ago from the UK, and the first mistake that I made when I moved to Estonia was that I thought I could navigate my way here as I did in the UK. But I was wrong, because an average guy in the UK has at least once met a colored person, even to the extent of telling them directions. While in Estonia, I mean, in a lot of areas in the capital, people were surprised that there's on the bus a curly-haired brown girl. And so I got a lot of stares. And so probably the women in this room can relate with me. If you're a woman and you enter in a room full of men, you can tell who's just looking at you and who's staring at you dirty. Like, women can tell this. Similarly, a colored person can basically instinctively tell when someone's just looking at you like, oh, what is this brown person doing here? And when someone's looking at you like, oh my God, if I could, I would punch you. So there were, not a lot, but there were those stares. And, well, I kind of got used to it quickly. Just wear headphones and look down. Sometimes it was awkward because there's someone like right here staring at you and you can see from the corner of your eye. And you're like, what do I do now? Do I move? It's too full. But yeah. But other than the stares, one thing that has been different for me in Estonia as compared to the UK, for instance, or I've traveled a bit around Europe. So that is not feeling safe at times. This comes from a lot of things. So I'll give a little background first. When I moved to Estonia, I'm a Muslim. So I Googled the nearest mosque. There is no mosque in Estonia, but there is an Islamic center here in Tallinn. And I opened the Facebook page of the Islamic center, and the first post on that page of that Islamic center was that someone had vandalized that center and with a spray paint cursed the religion and said something like, go back home. Which is funny, because if you actually go to that Islamic center, most of the Muslims are Estonian. But that's ignorance. Anyway, or I heard of a story of this other Pakistani guy who was coming out of the mosque and someone in an Ekre shirt came to him and started cursing the religion, cussing the God, cussing the Prophet, and telling him to go back to the country. The thing is, when I, a new brown Muslim person here in Estonia, sees these kind of stories, of course I don't generalize that all Estonians are racist, but I do to some extent feel unsafe. For example, if I am going to the mosque, whenever I'm going out, I'm going to look, is there a white person looking at me? Like, if someone's coming close, is he going to say something to me? So that is this environment of feeling unsafe. And then recently, a friend of mine who was in a police station had an incident where a guy came up to him, and this person is a highly skilled immigrant. And a guy came up to him and called him a refugee, told him to go back, abused him, spat on his face. Now, this is a friend of mine, so when he told me the story, I remember, like, I was in tears, even though it didn't happen to me, but this is someone from my community. This is a guy from Pakistan. He looks exactly like me. And it could happen to me, and what's more scary is that it happened in a police station, and nobody came in to help him. And so, with all this background of all the stories that we hear, now I'm going to talk about what happened to me. So I was standing at the signal at Vabaduze Valyak and minding my own business. And a guy crossed the road, came up to me, looked down on me, and he pushed me. He didn't say anything. He just walked away. I don't know why he pushed me. I have no idea. But since I hear all these stories all the time, he probably pushed me because I'm brown. I was sitting in a bus once, and a guy came and sat next to me and started shouting something in Estonian. I don't understand Estonian. I have no idea what he said. Other people were looking. They were cringing, but nobody really said anything. So I just stood up and went to the other side of the bus. It was the number 3 trolley. I don't know what he said. I have no idea. But I assume that he was probably being racist because I hear all these stories, and I am always cautious when I'm walking that nobody says something or that I don't look too brown. But yeah. And more than that, so this is the stories that happen on the road or how I feel going around. But not always, of course. And then there's also something that needs to be addressed, which is workplace racism. Racism in workplace does happen in Estonia, and it's very interesting because Estonia has been branding itself as the Silicon Valley of Europe with e-residency and top specialist visa programs, and people should come in and invest here. So when you Google Estonia, it seems like an extremely welcoming country. And there's this International House of Estonia in Ülemiste, which helps foreigners integrate into Estonia, which is great. But nobody is helping Estonians except these people. Estonians don't know how to handle this influx of colored people that's coming from third countries. And so I was working with an HR company, and we were meeting different clients to help them hire developers from abroad. And this pretty big startup here in Tallinn said to me, please make sure that you don't send us any CVs of Indians. We don't hire Indians. Then there was a company that told me, and it's funny because this startup didn't know that I could potentially be an Indian. So the HR girl is saying it to my face. And I was like, okay, sure, you're the client. And then there was this company that told me, please don't send us any CVs of Russians. We don't hire Russians, okay? Once I sent a list of a few people from India, few people from Nigeria, Ghana, one South American, to a company, and they responded in the email, these are too many Arabs. That was ignorant, but yes. So these are people working in HR in these companies over here in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia. And it's a sad state. So what I feel would be the solution, I mean, this average guy on the roadside who says, go back to your country, of course he's dangerous, but I think more dangerous than that is what is happening in the workplace. So ideally, and it trickles down. I mean, if your educated lot is not racist, the environment slowly trickles down. So my suggestion, for instance, would be that how come in Estonia there are no workplace trainings or mandatory workplace trainings of how to communicate with someone from a diverse culture, or how, like, what is insensitive to say, or like my friend here said, why does nobody say that nigger is an unacceptable word? These are some things, because a lot of the racism is actually stemming from ignorance, and these are a lot of things that could be talked about, and especially in workplaces first, there should be some sort of mandatory trainings. But yes, that's my story so far. But if someone asks me, are Estonians racist? I would say no. But if someone asks me, are they racist in Estonia? I would say yes. And that's it.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna. That was a great story. So we're going to have a little break now. And as I said, then we'll have a group work. And don't worry, we have allocated super friendly, super professional moderators to each table who will help you to explain how it works. But first, 10 minutes break. Thank you.